Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. I have two pieces of news here, but I suppose one is much more interesting than the other one. So I'll start with the less interesting one, and that is just a quick New York Comic Con update. The full schedule has gone live, you can search it. The Braving the Elements live podcast is still the only proper Avatar panel. But they have updated it to reveal two of the guests that are going to be in the podcast. Previously, I think they literally just said, along with special guests, but there was no reveal of who they were. Now we have that D. Bradley Baker and Johnny Young Bosch are going to be guests on the podcast. So D. Bradley Baker makes a lot of sense. He, of course, did the animal voices on Avatar and Korra. So he's like the voice of Appa, basically. But he also voices Tarlok in Korra, adult Tarlok in Korra. So that's cool. Johnny Young Bosch, as far as I'm aware, isn't on either Avatar or Korra. So why is he on this podcast? I'm guessing either Janet or Dante maybe knows him quite well, and that's why he's coming on, and he's probably a fan of Avatar. Other than that, I don't really know what the Avatar connection is here and what the significance of him being on the panel is. Like, this is, of course, the English actor for Ichigo from Bleach, which is kind of exciting because, of course, the Bleach anime is coming back at some point. So, I suppose he'll get the chance to be Ichigo again. But outside of that, I'm not really sure what the significance is here. My guess is just that they primarily are getting guests who are at the panel to do other stuff, because I think D. Bradley Baker has his own panel at New York Comic Con as well, so it makes sense where he could also just be on this one. And similarly, I guess Johnny Young Bosch is here for other stuff and is also on this panel. So yeah, I think these guests just make it clear that, don't get your hopes up for any sort of news at this thing, because the only way we'd probably get news from this is if guests included Mike and Brian or a lot of the comic teams or anything like that. So I don't think it's really going to be that. The bigger piece of news is this: brand new product, specifically a new Blu-ray set for Avatar and Korra. The Ultimate Aang and Korra Blu-ray collection. Weirdly, the title on Amazon is the Ultimate Aang and Korra Collection Art Cards. I think that will change when I suppose this thing gets more officially sort of revealed, because I definitely get the impression that this was meant to be exclusively revealed by some sort of a news publishing outlet like IGN or something like that, just because this doesn't have all of the information. There's no image of what the set looks like. It clearly has some of the information, because this is, in my mind, a brand new image of Aang and Korra. And it obviously has some sort of details about over 80 minutes of all new exclusive bonus features, includes an interview with the Avatarverse creators, plus 8 collectible art cards. So that's why it's called art cards. You're going to get 8 collectible art cards. That's cool. That definitely makes it more of a collector's kind of edition type thing. I wonder what the art that's going to be on them actually is, because again, there's a few points at which they're kind of vague about this. These new things could technically be reused things, and even though they're saying all new, they always work around that. So we'll get into some of the details here. So $97.99, quite expensive. I believe that is the exact same price that the two Steelbook editions for Avatar and Korra launched at. They're down in price now, but that's definitely quite high. And I get it's both shows in one, and obviously the idea is that this isn't going to be as sort of super deluxe of a collection. We don't know what the packaging looks like, but I'd be very surprised if this was Steelbooks at the very least. But the packaging still should be decent, I think, for that price. But we'll see if that comes down, of course. December 7th, 2021, so it's out relatively soon. We're basically in October as of next week, so 2 months and a bit until the release of this. So they're going to have to do the full reveal on this sooner rather than later, which is why I think this listing has probably just gone up ahead of an exclusive reveal from an IGN or whatever. So that's that. Last thing I suppose here is the description here. Ultimate Aang and Korra Blu-ray collection features over an hour of all new and exclusive bonus features, including an auditory exploration with the Avatarverse creators, a conversation with Janet Varney and Dante Bosco, hosts of the Avatar Braving the Elements podcast, and a collectible art cards. And then the rest is just like what Avatar and Korra actually are, and they're calling it the Ultimate Avatar Collection. Now, the thing here is, this compared to, say, if you have the two Steelbooks, which I suppose previously have been together, the Ultimate Collection on Blu-ray. Obviously, in terms of packaging, it's going to take a lot to beat those two things out, but it has some new stuff. It has some new collectible art cards, and it has the quote-unquote new information. So they're saying over 80 minutes here, they say over an hour down here, so I trust the 80 when they actually say it. It features over an hour of all new and exclusive features, including an auditory exploration with the Avatarverse creators. So my thing here with this is this a separate thing to the conversation with Dante Bosco and Janet Varney, or is this just a run-on sentence where like this is one thing? Just because the conversation is with Janet Varney and Dante Bosco because it mentions an interview with the creators up here. And it mentions the podcast, which is where they interviewed them. So this is where we're getting to this weird situation of like, so they're going to have a separate interview with them that's new, that's just on the Blu-ray. Or are they just putting the two podcasts on the Blu-ray? I don't know. The fact that they say auditory makes me kind of feel like, oh, are they just putting the podcast up? And that's a bit weird. That like they seemingly have video for those two interviews, but they're maybe not doing that. I'm not sure what the deal is here. Definitely, this needs better explanation. But so far, like that doesn't really impress me. The idea of just like, okay, an interview and some art cards, especially for that price. So what would potentially sell it is how nice does this set actually look? Because we've had nice sets before. Like you have the Steelbook Collection here, which is available for, you know, a cheaper price at this point. Even though it is exclusive and limited, it's still actually available. Highlighting, I think, the fandom, you know, the appeal of an expensive set where you're basically paying for packaging was only so much that this is still in stock despite the Avatar hype. Just because it is rather expensive for what it is, when you can get like the standard Blu-ray for like what, $29.99 or whatever. Similarly, the same thing with the Korra one, same type of set, and also quite heavily reduced at this point, but still in stock. You know, if you're getting this, and especially if that other stuff isn't all that interesting, is this maybe a better option to go for the two Steelbooks? I don't even know. You of course have the two standard editions together for only $55, and even at full price they were only $83. So this is, you know, without those extras but just standard packaging. This seems like the value to go for, and that what most people probably still would get. You then have this, you know, 15th anniversary special edition, which I believe is mainly an international release because it says Legend of Aang on it, and you get the Kyoshi art kind of stuff. I'm wondering, will the art cards be this stuff, or will they be new? Because these stuff, obviously, this is going to be in the calendar that's out basically right now. Mine is still on the way. This is a potential for what the art cards could actually be, because the style seems to roughly match the style here that they're going for the Kyoshi cover artists. So we might have actually seen that stuff already before, though I don't think there's any for Korra, so there might be something new there. But there's that as another set. So I don't know. I definitely need to be convinced as to why this is something Avatar fans need to get. I see what they're doing with the marketing of trying to be like, here's this new stuff that you can't get anywhere else. But unless those collectible art cards are stunning and amazing, and unless that interview is properly new and is more of an actual like proper discussion. Because the Mike and Brian interview that they had in the podcast, like half of it was sort of their origin story, where they ended right as they were getting to Avatar, and then the second one is more interesting, but it was still more about like how they got the show off the ground, and not a lot of it was really discussing like the show itself, which I think is the sort of discussion that people want. And then of course they asked the question about, you know, what's the status of like Avatar Studios and so on. So is it just going to be that? I'm not sure. Let me just actually check here on the podcast feed how long those episodes actually were. So they were like the second one. So 50 minutes for part 2, and then the first one was how long? 50 minutes for part 1 as well. So that's an hour 40 of podcast. So they're not just putting both of them up based on what was said here, because they're implying that there are more than one extra feature. So I don't know, because that means there's over 90 minutes of podcast. So maybe it is a new interview. I'm not sure. It's definitely weird, but either way, I think it's weird, because it's just like, okay, they like potentially recorded that interview with Mike and Brian publicly for the podcast release, and then they also separately recorded a interview with them for the Blu-ray release. It's kind of weird. And especially when Mike and Brian interviews, you know, can be a little bit like hit and miss, in that, you know, fans want one thing, but the creators talking to the voice actors is going to lead to a different thing. So, you know, it's never going to be exactly what you want. I don't know. I'm unconvinced right now. I definitely need to see what it looks like, is the main thing. And my recommendation right now would be, you don't need to pre-order this straight away. Wait until we see a better explanation of this stuff. Wait until we see pictures of what the set looks like first. Then make your decision. Because if this looks interesting, it might be something that I go in for. Just because, like, I did skip the steelbooks because I thought they were too expensive. But this, for maybe a really, really nice collected edition of the two, might be something that interests me, but it depends on how a lot of this goes. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the Ultimate Edition Blu-ray set here. What do you think's going on with all this stuff? How much of it is going to be new? How much of it is going to be reused? Does it interest you at all? I think the main thing to say about it, probably to finish off, is just that this is like the first, like, is it the first, like, I'd say it's the first release of the Blu-ray where it feels like there's full acknowledgement of the hype behind the show at this point. Because sure, you can say the steelbooks were kind of that, but it was like right on the verge of that, the Avatar Studios kind of announcement happening. This is post Avatar Studios hype. The series is going to be, you know, expanding going forward. Here's this really cool thing that collects more or less everything from before together. That's cool. The fact that on an official item it literally says the word Avatar verse, making that word feel a little bit more official, for like, that's how we're meant to refer to the franchise's universe. It's the Avatar verse. That's kind of interesting that gets like made official here to a degree. But yeah, in the comments let me know what your thoughts are. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.